So this right here is the Lectric Xpeak. It is competing with a sea of fat tire e-bikes that cost $300 to $600 more than its $1,400 price tag. Can it deliver the same quality and performance as those higher priced rides? Well, let's take a ride and find out. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Electric Bike Report. Or if this is your first time here, then won't you please hit that subscribe button to stay in the know when it comes to all things e-bike. All right, so the Xpeak is a bike that I have gotten to know really well. A few months ago, we put the prototype XP model through the ringer in our testing, and we were pretty impressed with the results. Now here on this production model, a few things have been changed that largely just helped me solidify my opinions of the bike from my last go around. Opinions both on the good aspects and the trade-offs it makes that you'll have to live with. So before we walk through its specs and test results, let me dish out our main takeaways about the Xpeak. All right, so first off, Lectric is separating itself from similar fat bikes by touting the durability and ruggedness of the bike. How'd they do that? Well, it has undergone a third-party lab stress testing that I will detail later, but the key thing to remember is that the frame, fork, stem, and handlebar all bear a stamp of approval for off-road riding that typically only mountain bikes achieve. That is pretty cool and not found on any other sub $2,000 fat bike that I know of. The key component that helped them achieve this was the RST Renegade suspension fork with its 80 millimeters of travel. It is a higher quality than a lot of unbranded stuff I typically find at this price, and it performed really well in my testing. I wouldn't have minded if it was just a little bit stiffer, but overall I was pretty impressed with its performance. Next up is the Xpeak's motor power. So the majority of these 26 by 4 inch fat tire bikes that we see have powerful motors, and sure enough, the Xpeak is no different. The 750 watt nominal or 1300 watt peak motor can climb hills and dish out speeds as well as any. But it is noticeably quieter and a bit more efficient thanks to some custom programming that Lectric calls their PWR system. It manages to squeeze out a few more miles from its battery than most fat bikes do. Last but not least, it does the usual Lectric party trick of delivering a bike for several $100s less than a lot of e-bikes with similar components and performance. Let's be real, that does mean it has some trade-offs. For example, I don't love this particular shifter for off-road riding, and there is only a one high step frame and one step through frame to pick from. But that is true of other more expensive e-bikes that share this style, and remember, those other ones didn't come with that same durability backing, or they have motors with greater drawbacks. So whatever shortcomings the Xpeak had felt like worthy trade-offs to me. All right, so that covers the big stuff. Let's take a look at the rest of what you get here on the Xpeak. So the motor is powered by a 672 watt-hour battery, and the whole electrical system here is UL 2849 certified. It can be ridden as either a class 1, 2, or 3, and we kept our testing to class 2 since we tested the prototype in class 3 mode. The drivetrain is the common Shimano Tourney 7-speed that has an 11 and 28 tooth cassette and a 46 tooth chainring. The Xpeak rolls on 26 by 4 inch Chaoyang hippo skin knobby tires. The name seems to live up to its title as they are thick and haven't had a flat yet, despite all of our off-road testing. And for added assurance, Lectric even pre-slimes the tubes for extra flat prevention. The saddle is sportier in nature, but still feels really nicely cushioned to me. The Xpeak has unbranded hydraulic disc brakes on 180 millimeter rotors and a headlight and taillight for safety to slow down and be seen. Ours here has the upgraded headlight as well. The handlebar is 660 millimeter wide with a slight rise, which handled fairly well in my riding. The grips are softer ergonomic rubber that I liked quite a bit. And on the right side, you get this sideways push throttle, which I enjoyed. It gives me some ATV vibes, and the angle means it's less likely to be engaged when bouncing around off-road. And then you have that Shimano over-the-bar shifter. Now over on the left-hand side is the controller for adjusting your PAS levels. Then in the center here is the standard black and white Lectric display. Now it is large and easy to see, but I'm becoming a bit of a stickler about bar-based battery readouts, and I'm still hoping that we get percentage-based ones across all e-bikes one day. But this does give you a ballpark idea for how long you have left at least. And rounding things out on the Xpeak are the fenders and rear rack of our test bike. As an added bonus, the Xpeak arrives in a way that was very easy to assemble thanks to its through axle. Out of the box, you'll just turn the handlebar, attach the tire without needing any tools, and then you should be set to ride. It's pretty cool they pulled that off, keeping the Lectric name in the category of easiest to unbox and ride e-bikes. And for good measure, all that packaging seemed to be biodegradable as well, so kudos on the environmentally friendly focus. So that covers all of the parts, but let's get to the testing and see if the Xpeak holds its own. So our first test is to see how well the Xpeak can stop. So as per usual, I brought this bike up to 20 miles per hour, hit the brakes, then measured that distance and took the average of 3 different attempts. The Xpeak stopped at an average of 22 feet 11 inches for a pretty solid result. Now, as of this filming, our Fat Tire e-bike average is right around 22 feet, so it's keeping up with its peers. Interestingly, this was about 1 foot and 3 inches better than what we saw on the prototype XP that we tested. I think the main difference might have been that particular model was a step-through frame that was a bit cramped for a rider of my size, so I'm chalking up the difference to feeling a bit more suited to this high-step bike. All in all, the brakes did a good job, and I'm expecting basically all full-size Fat Tire e-bikes these days to come with hydraulics, so Lectric meets my value expectations. And having no surprises on the performance side is always a win. So overall, the Xpeak did a good job in the braking department. Part of a good e-bike experience is having meaningful and distinct PAS levels so that you can pick the speed that's right for you. So to see how the Xpeak did, I conducted some speed tests both in its Class 2 and Class 3 modes to see how the Xpeak rides. All right, so starting off our pedal test right now without any motor help, going on a little over 8 miles per hour, 8.5 miles per hour, up to 9. Let's go ahead and kick that motor on, see what happens. All right, so in PAS 1, I feel like I can sense the motor taking a little bit of the edge off. It's not giving me a lot in terms of speed. Yeah, I got about 9.5 miles per hour, maybe. Go to plus 2. Now that one had a much more noticeable kick. See, as we're climbing up here, going about 13, 14 miles per hour even. It's doing a pretty good job of moving. It's not very loud either, just kind of humming beneath me. Moving pedal says 3. Same thing here, you can kind of feel as it bolts ahead as I kick it up. But I mean, overall it's doing pretty solid, going up to 18, 19 miles per hour. I think we're gonna top out at 20 pretty quickly. But moving pedal says 4 now, and sure enough, hitting upwards 19.7, 19.8. Finish things off in PAS 5, and we already hit 20 PAS 4, but yeah, I mean, the motor pushes you along. 1's pretty subtle. 2 and 3 feel a little bit more, than 4 and 5 you top off easily. So let's see what things look like in Class 3 speeds. All right, so now we are on the Class 3 settings side of things. This one's going a little bit faster. I feel like it's bumped me up to about 10.5 miles per hour. Kicking the PAS 2, see what we do there. Similar to before, I can feel a lot more noticeable power from the motor in PAS 2 as it starts climbing up to 14.9 miles per hour, looks like. Pedal says 3. Another noticeable increase there. Gonna increase the gearing range up into 5th gear, 6th gear now. I mean, I'm easily going 20.5. I think we got close to 21 there for a split second. 0.3, still climbing, so I'll just kind of ride it out, see where we end up. Hopefully not hit the tumbleweed. Whew. All right, about 22 miles per hour in PAS 3, PAS 4. All right, I'm in my 7th and final gear. I mean, I'm lightly pushing on the pedals, but I am happy the gear range is enough I can get a bite. Got about 25.8. Finish things off in PAS 5. He's climbing over 27.5. I mean, yeah, 27.5 I think is about where we're maxing out there. A little bit of headwind we're fighting, but I mean, yeah, pushes forward ahead. Really happy with the gear range on that. But yeah. We're gonna go ahead and do our 0-20 throttle test. Ready, set, go. It's a pretty gradual start off, but it's got a decent amount of build to it. 17, 18, 19, 20, there we go. According to the speedometer, my app's showing a little over 19, so nice. Now that I'm back inside where I don't have to worry about wind noise, let's recap those speeds starting with the Class 2 test. So without any motor help, I was casually pedaling around 8.9 miles per hour. There was really subtle motor activity in PAS 1, taking me to 9.7 miles per hour, and then clearer acceleration up to 15 miles per hour in PAS 2. then 19.2 in PAS 3, and I finally hit 20 miles per hour both in PAS 4 and 5. Now Class 3 had similar tendencies but with different speeds. PAS 1 went to 10.8 miles per hour, then PAS 2 hit 14.9, and then we saw increases to 21.9, 25.8, and 27.5 miles per hour across the remaining PAS levels. Overall, I think those graphs show the bike's decently distributed results. I'd say PAS 1 could be a little bit quicker both in Class 2 and Class 3, and for Class 2 riders, you will really only notice a big difference across PAS 3, 4, and 5 when it comes to hills. But overall, I am pretty satisfied with the settings. I really love seeing PAS settings that are distinct. It just makes it feel like they matter. Also, I was pleasantly surprised by the gear range. A lot of 7-speed Class 3 capable e-bikes that I test get kind of ghost pedally somewhere between 18 and 21 miles per hour. I was hitting 24, 25 miles per hour on the Xpeak before I found myself wanting to actually shift gears, so kudos there on the drivetrain setup. So when we ask our audience what matters most on an e-bike, range is neck and neck up there with hill climbing performance. So let's start first with the Xpeak's range. For our range test, we rode the Xpeak 2 different times, once in its highest PAS level of 5 and again in the lowest of PAS 1. The goal was to see the floor and ceiling value that the 672 watt-hour battery can deliver. Now, using max power, we recorded 30.16 miles to the tune of an 18.2 mile per hour average while riding on our local trails. On the second go around, we were able to get 59.26 miles with an average speed closer to 8.5 miles per hour on PAS 1. Overall, this was a good test result. When I filter our data for fat tire e-bikes with similar sized batteries, the average is about 29 to 53 miles, so it's pretty on the money in terms of expectations, even going a little further in minimum assistance. Now, the only caveat to cover is PAS 1 is likely a slower than most people want to go, and I think most riders will be going at PAS 2 speeds. Lectric conducted their own range testing across all 5 levels, and since our data actually beats out some of their results, I feel comfortable quoting their expected mileage of 44 miles at PAS 2 speeds, which is still pretty great off a battery for this size. Now, I foresee the Xpeak getting a lot of the same treatment as most fat tire e-bikes, which is to say plenty of riding on paved areas with some off-roading thrown in when people can swing it. Getting 30 miles out of the battery, even on full blast, is an impressive floor, and that makes it a viable form of daily transportation. Or it's going to be something that'll give you several hours of fun riding off in the dirt as well. And now the second crucial topic on shoppers' minds. How does the Xpeak do on hills? We test all of our e-bikes on our beloved Hellhole Trail to see how quickly and how well the bike can climb its 3-mile-long hill with a 12% average grade. I'll let Justin take it from here to show you how it did.
Okay, back out on the Lectric Xpeak now on the pedal, right in 7th gear. Feels like it's going pretty strong. 15 miles per hour, downshift once. 14.7 through there, 13.8. Again, I'm not pushing very hard here, letting the bike do the work. Motor feels very smooth. Like the engagement, what they've done, even though it's not a torque sensor, just feels really nice, even climbing hills. The noise, again, it's still not making much noise. You're not gonna hear it again with the wind, I don't think. And in case you all listen right here. Yeah, so again, pretty quiet. All I'm hearing is wind, but the bike feels really stable, really nice going up this hill. And I think we're gonna have a pretty good result as we get to the top here. And go check the tape and see how it does against other fat tire bikes. Okay, here we are in Hellhole with the Lectric Xpeak, the high step version, and doing the throttle test. So far it's doing pretty good. Right around 14, 13. So you hit the steepest section here of this first part, 12.4, 11.1, 10.9, 10.8, 10.6. So felt really solid through that section actually. You're not going to be able to hear the motor much, I don't think, with the wind. I'll be quiet through this next section to see in case you can, if the GoPro picks it up, but the motor really is pretty quiet on this bike. So yeah, got down to about 10.4 is all, and motor is definitely below average in terms of noise, which is a positive below average. So really good job what they've done to dial that in so far. Like I said, I don't think you'll be able to hear it because the wind that we're kind of getting right now, but I'm curious to see what this does. I think it's going to have a pretty darn good result for the throttle test on Hellhole.
So the Xpeak ended up scoring a pretty impressive result, not only in terms of its time, but also its feel and proving to be less noisy. So on the throttle test, Justin made it to the top in a time of 1 minute and 19 seconds, which is good for a 13.7 mile per hour average. And then on max PAS result, he saved a bit of time, going up in 1 minute and 11 seconds, traveling 15.3 miles per hour. Now, these results are in the upper tier of performers, placing well above most other e-bikes. It is faster than about 80% of all the bikes that we have brought to Hellhole. And as an interesting side note, those were nearly identical numbers to what we got when we tested the prototype Xpeak model. So the motor is actually a model of consistency, and kudos to Justin, who really dials in his output on these tests. Now, beyond the great times it posted on Hellhole, the lack of motor noise is really commendable. I have tested hundreds of hub motors, and this one is noticeably more quiet compared to most. These results are easy for me as a reviewer. The bike can hang on any hill with pedal or throttle, and that's always awesome to know that you don't have to be afraid to take this bike to hilly areas. All right, we've gone through all of the quantitative testing. Now let's head out and ride just to talk about the Xpeak and how it handles and feels. So, I mean, when you're riding around on the Xpeak, especially here on the roads or paved paths, I'd kind of describe the feel as like a mix between comfort and sporty. Sporty largely due to the fact, I mean, you're like fairly upright, but you have a slight forward lean. You know, it's the type of thing that like later on when riding in the dirt and showcasing that, I mean, you can get a little bit of bend and flex in your elbows and kind of take it more aggressively. But I mean, I can also like get, you know, my back fairly straight, feel fairly comfortable. And there's a lot of different things that can just make this a very fast-paced commuter, or can make it, you know, something you kind of like leisurely ride around with and enjoy the stability. So let's kind of dive a little bit more into it. So there are, of course, 2 different frame sizes. I am on the high step this time around. Back when we reviewed the Xpeak prototype, it was a step-through frame. I definitely think I like this one a little bit better. It's more accommodating for someone of my size as a 6'1" rider. When you're a brand like Lectric and you're trying to make everything as affordable as possible, you know, one size fits all frames are kind of your bread and butter, but a way you can kind of offer 2 different sizes is the high step. You know, it's sized slightly larger, the step through frame slightly smaller. It's going to accommodate shorter crowds more. But I definitely feel more comfortable here on the high step than I did on the step through. So, and part of what can accommodate the rider heights here, of course, just kind of comes down to the saddle. I mean, it's on a fixed stem here. You can rotate the handlebars forward and backward a little bit. I think that, you know, gives you about 2 inches difference in reach. I want to say it's between 22 and 24 inches. It overall feels pretty good. The handlebar, I think on the website they listed as 26 inches, which is a 660 millimeter bar. I am remembering my conversion right. Overall, it's like pretty nice. I don't mind it here on the roads. I like something a little bit wider for off-road riding, but you know, again, we'll dive into that a little bit more later. But it does just feel pretty comfortable overall. Just lots of little like things like with the saddles. It's a sportier saddle, but again, it's comfortable enough. I like these grips, ergonomic, really easy to handle. And then, of course, you do have a front suspension fork up here. The RST Renegade fork with that 80 millimeters of travel. I mean, it's going to, you know, handle the brunt of most of the type of punishment you're going to find. Anything that you'd find on a paved road, you know, your potholes or speed bumps, whatever. I mean, it's going to do a good job of just taking that and keeping you feeling fresh and happy, as well as the tires. So one of the benefits to a fat tire e-bike, especially for people looking to, you know, ride around on paved areas with it, I mean, it's just wider. It's really stable. If you haven't ridden a bike in a while, it's the type of thing, if you hop on, you're going to feel, you know, you don't have to remember how to balance. It's going to do the job for you in a lot of ways. And like a tire like this, you know, it's the Chaoyang Hippo Skin tire. I think it's got a max PSI of 20, so you can even air it down, make it even a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more cushioned for a very smooth riding experience. But the tread on it is knobby, so it's going to be nice for, or give you that versatility, make it feel like you're driving an SUV. You know, you can ride it around town most of the time, but if you need to go to the campsite or whatever, you know, you can go off in the dirt and be just fine. And of course, Lectric does line their tires with slime already when they send them out to you, so a little bit of extra flat protection certainly never hurts. Last but not least, more or less talking about feel. I mean, we got to talk about the motor engagement. Now, Lectric has their PWR programming on this, which is, it's a cadence sensor based one, so it does, you know, kick in. It's not like the same natural ride feel that we talk about with torque sensors, but this one, it does a little bit of a better job. A lot of cadence sensors will just give you full blast, all or nothing. I think this one kind of like ramps it up just a little bit better across those different PAS levels, but it certainly does pick up speed pretty easily. You know, just light pedal effort here in PAS 3. I do have it set to class 3 mode right now. You can see it picks up. When you stop pedaling, it senses that and backs off. I thought the throttle was nicely programmed as well. I mean, it's that sideways thumb throttle. You can just hold that down and it will pick up the speed for you. But again, it does a good job of kind of accommodating everybody because it ramps you up. It doesn't just blast you ahead, but it still has that good top end speed. So overall, in terms of its on-road riding capabilities, it's pretty nice. Let's go see how it does off. Right, so now we're doing the off-road portion of the Xpeak ride quality test, and I gotta say, this is actually an area where the Xpeak shines, and the reason for that being there's a lot of fat bikes in the $1,000 to $2,000 price range that try to come off as something that, you know, can be an off-roader for the majority of the time, or at least half the time, and I truthfully find most of them are better kept on the road for half the time. There's always something in the handling or just something in the durability that I just don't only think of as an off-road first, but I mean, Lectric has been able to convince me of that here with the Xpeak, and that comes down to two main things. It is that ISO 4210-10 rating, and just like the little extras they did here that a lot of other, you know, similarly priced e-bikes don't do. So that durability rating to your average consumer, what's the big deal? Why is that important? Why do I care? Or even to like most mountain bikers that I know, they don't know what it is. They don't know why they should care. It's just, it is a durability standard that shows that Lectric went and spec'd this with something with a handlebar, fork, stem, and frame that could withstand punishment, that could go through the rigors of the testing and come out the other side to get the stamp of approval. And that does change things in my mind. I don't have as much questions about an RST Renegade fork for the long haul durability if I am constantly, like, you know, getting some punishment of the off-roads on it each and every day. And then, like I said before, there's just little things that they did that was really thinking through, all right, if we want to make this as off-road friendly as possible, how do we do that? That's, you know, it's like the pedals that have the studs in them already, it's the slap guard on the frame, it's the bash guard over the derailleur, just the little things that add up that's like, okay, they really did think this through to make it something I want to ride in the dirt with. Not to mention, the motor is plenty capable. I mean, this is a pretty steep climb right here, and, you know, I'm going up and over it very easy, and even coming down the other side on the descent. I mean, these brakes did not set any new records in our brake test, but they do a good job. They control the descent for the type of environment this is made for. I mean, where I'm riding, I passed a Jeep, I passed a four-wheeler, I passed a side-by-side and a dirt bike. This is very ATV friendly. This is the type of area where the Xpeak is going to thrive. It's going to be a lot of fun if you're, you know, looking to have something that you can commute quickly to work or comfortably to work and then take camping on the weekends. You know, you can kind of enjoy that here on the Lectric Xpeak. I think they've done a good job overall, kind of blending the best of both worlds. Let's talk a little bit more about everything back in the studio. Okay, so before we wrap things up, I wanted to cover some sizing thoughts. Now, this step-over model we have is suggested for riders 5'7" up to 6'5", while the slightly smaller sized ST option is suggested for riders 5'2" to 6'3". Now, my time on the ST model that I've ridden taught me that 6'1" is probably closer to the max, so just remember that people on the margins will technically fit, but possibly not ideally. But still, with two frame options to choose from and a high 330-pound payload capacity, most people will be able to ride an Xpeak just fine. Lectric seems hell-bent on making the most affordable e-bike of every style. If you check out our best lists at the Electric Bike Report website, you'll find them on the cargo list, the folder list, and even the trike list. It's not just that they make them affordable, but they do it while also making sure it's a fun ride that boasts a few claims that others can't match. And the Xpeak continues that trend in the full-size fat tire e-bike world. The brake, range, and hill tests all came back with good to great scores. The mountain bike durability certification it received helps solidify in my mind that you can ride it off-road as much as you'd like and you'll feel confident in its longevity and safety. The trade-offs of the Xpeak are pretty small. I didn't love the shifter for this bike just due to how much I enjoyed off-roading on it, and I'm always wishing for more frame color options. But if those are the trade-offs, I think I'm happy to make those on a bike that's performing as well as other rides that cost hundreds more. Now, I'm curious for your thoughts. How do you guys feel this bike stacks up against others out there like it? Let us know in the comments. And if you find this review helpful and want to buy an Xpeak, you can support us by giving this video a like and clicking the links down below. I am Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and this was the Lectric Xpeak.